Hi all, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Thursday, May 18th, 2023, and you're watching WGAN-TV live at 5. We have an awesome show for you today. It's a case study, Plug Power, lead generation powered by ZUANT3D plus Matterport. And our subject matter experts today to visit with us on this topic are Plug Power Global Events Manager, Tracy Oakland. Hey, Tracy, good to see you. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Awesome. And also with us today is ZUANT Chief Executive Officer, Peter Gillette. Peter, good to see you. Thanks for being back on the show.
Good to see you again, Dan. Greetings.
Pete, for context for today's show, how about filling us in on ZUANT and ZUANT3D?
Cool. Yes, no, delighted. So ZUANT itself is the classic lead retrieval, lead management app that's earned its spurs, over the decades, scanning badges at trade shows and providing content and all of that lead management flow to streamline things through to CRM and marketing automation systems. And then in the last few years, we've been asked to do the same thing for 3D spaces and hence formed a partnership with Matterport so we could overlay these additional services on Matterport 3D digital twins. And to start with, of course, exhibitions and trade shows was an ideal example for this, but also into other events for clients like 3M and Tesla, and a lot in the bio healthcare field for companies like Thermo Fisher Scientific. So we're seeing that this is actually taking us out into much wider fields. I mean, Tracy's going to talk about the manufacturing side, but also across to fashion and retail and into travel and hospitality. So anywhere you need to demonstrate something.
So awesome. So lead generation, good quality data. ZUANT has been doing this for years, thousands of trade shows over time, and now the addition of the virtual spaces. Pete, you and I, and along with ZUANT CTO Dave Hickson, we did a deep dive WGAN-TV show, sales lead generation and real-time insights for Matterport via ZUANT3D. So our viewers can get a deep dive demo into this whole topic. Our short link, wgan.info/ZUANT on WGAN, and then as well to go to your website, ZUANT3D.com. Tracy, for context for today's show, tell us about Plug Power, big picture about Plug Power.
Sure. So Plug Power has been working in hydrogen energy for more than 25 years. We built the first market for hydrogen, which was a turnkey hydrogen solution to support material handling operations of customers like Amazon, Walmart, and Home Depot. They are using 50,000 fuel cells and 50 tons of liquid hydrogen a day in their operations. We're also currently the largest buyer of liquid hydrogen in the world. And today our focus is heavily on building a green hydrogen infrastructure. So Plug has fleets of forklifts and vehicles, green hydrogen plants, electrolyzers, fuel cells, and a gigafactory. And now we're working on storage and delivery, all part of a green hydrogen network that we're developing to meet the challenges customers face in fully decarbonizing energy, transportation, and industrial applications. So we're becoming a one-stop shop for those who want to apply clean energy to their daily operations.
Yes, and who doesn't want to do that? So very exciting story, actually, to read about Plug Power at plugpower.com. About the initiative for green. Large company, 3,000 employees, just released annual sales topping 700 million annual sales. So large company. Before we dive into the topic, anything else about Plug Power at a high level for context?
No, I would just say it's funny that you mentioned the 3,000 plus employees, because only about 2 years ago, we had 600 And so between 2 and 3 years, we've grown from 600 people to 3,000 plus. So I think it proves our point that we're in it for the long haul, and we're in it to make change.
Yeah, it's very exciting, the pace of growth. It's really quite extraordinary. For today's topic, plug power lead generation powered by ZUANT3D plus Matterport. What was the challenge that Plug Power was facing, and how did Matterport plus ZUANT help Plug Power?
So it's funny, Dan. At the end of last year, I was talking to our exhibit house that builds our trade show exhibits. And I said, ladies, I need lead generation. I need custom lead generation that can sort of streamline all of the global events that I manage. Every show we were going to, you get different feedback, different analytics, and very basic stuff. So they went to Exhibitor Live, a large trade show, I think it was in Las Vegas last year, where they met Will Ross from ZUANT. And they initially started talking to him because of my need for lead capture applications. And once Will and I connected and he started telling me about the capabilities ZUANT has, we came across this 3D capability. And I thought, well, actually, we're doing our annual symposium, which was in October last year. And it was the first time since COVID that we could do in person, but we also wanted to broadcast globally because there's no way to go back at this point. I mean, it's a great way to connect with the global community. And also you have sort of a minimal amount of people in person. So I started talking to Will and saying, we have a new gigafactory out in Rochester, New York. That's where the symposium is going to take place. We have a maximum of 200, 250 people that can be there, but we're going to stream worldwide. How do we show them using this 3D capability? How do we show the world everything that those people on site are going to see too? So it was a very quick turnaround, a surprise project, I think, for all of us. And we were definitely working until the very last minute to get it done, but it was such a departure from what I initially reached out to them about. And we were so pleasantly surprised because, as people talk about, not only is it that visual of people seeing what we're seeing on site, that transparency, but then it's all of the analytics and all of the lead capture that come from a 3D environment as well.
So could you break it down into two categories? Let's put lead generation to the side for the moment and talk about perhaps how you were able to use Matterport and ZUANT for the off-site people to be able to experience the on-site.
Yep. So basically, one of the pieces of our symposium was going to be a tour of the new gigafactory. So basically what we did with Matterport and ZUANT was Matterport came and did a 3D scan of our factory and all of the points of the factory that were going to be tour stops in person. So basically those people that were able to see it online were seeing the same stops and seeing the same information that everybody on site was seeing. So you would stop at the front entrance of the building and it would pop up like a hello or a video of our GM, Dan O'Connell, welcoming you to the gigafactory, same as he did in the tour. And then we went around the facility and took scans of all of the, I think it was 7 stops. And the 3D version allowed us to pop up a video where we had expert matter or subject matter experts speaking about what's happening in each of those spots. So truly that global community was getting everything a person was getting on a tour in real time.
And so at the big picture, how many people were able to view the Plug Power experience off-site?
Thousands. I don't know the exact number at this moment, but people who logged in to watch the symposium was close to 5,000, I think. That being said, once it ended, people were still watching the tour, watching the 3D tour. As Pete would say, he just told me recently that there's still people watching that tour and I didn't even know it. So it's great.
Still in there.
Yeah. So it's almost countless at this point, Dan, because you know where it started at that symposium live, thousands, and then it's there.
Now, I imagine in a factory that's related to some new innovative technology, you don't necessarily want people to see everything that's in the factory. So how was ZUANT 3D plus Matterport able to help with that challenge of, we want people to see the factory, but we don't want people to see everything in the factory, because with Matterport, you do see everything.
Absolutely. It was a very simple conversation. Once they did the scan of each stop, we would go through the scan and we would say, okay, this is a piece of IP. Can you blur it out? And it was as simple as that. And it when you're watching the scan or the video, you would never know that anything was, it never looked as if it was blurred. You know what I mean? It was very professionally done, where it was just simply a piece of the view that you didn't get too much detail in.
And I imagine also that with ZUANT, they were able to make it so that you would perhaps jump from the reception right to the spot in the tour and skipping some things that you didn't want to show.
Absolutely, yes. There's a lot of hallways. There's a lot of, side rooms, labs, and things like that. So yes, we did take the opportunity to sort of jump from station, spot 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 through 7 and kind of keep it clean.
Okay, I'm going to ask Pete to do a demo of that a little bit later, but I still want to stay with the big picture. Before we move on to kind of the lead generation piece of it, was there anything else in terms of the visual experience of doing this online with Matterport plus ZUANT 3D? I heard you at least talk about some annotation. So in my mind, I think of, oh, here's a video of Daniel O'Connell, your CEO. Oh, here's some subject matter experts. They're on video telling the same story that perhaps they would have told to the 200 plus that were in person.
Yes.
Were there other things like that within the Matterport tour enhanced by ZUANT 3D that you recall?
Absolutely. To be honest, there was probably so much that we could have used that we didn't because of the quick turnaround. When we do further, different scans, I'm excited to see what else we could have done. But yes, I think it was so easy to work with them. The idea that you can have a scan of an entire 360 space. A lot of the things that we were showing in this tour were brand new machines building, stacks and things like that, all of the parts and pieces to our fuel cells. And for a video to be able to pop up and somebody explain what that machine is doing, or data sheets, you can load any kind of data, PDFs, Word, anything you want, you can add in there so that people get the true information you want. It's sort of at your fingertips how much or how little you want to allow people to see.
Mm-hmm. In this new world of hybrid, where you're both doing an in-person and an online experience, it seems like in this case, where perhaps in the past you might have had a special event experience, that would have been it. But I think what I'm hearing is you would have been limited to 200 people as opposed to the thousands that actually have now participated.
Absolutely.
Virtually in the Matterport plus 3D plus ZUANT 3D experience. Were you able to learn things from perhaps some of the analytics of ZUANT about where people spent their time, or what? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So that was the key. The analytics are key, right? When you try to understand what people are interested in. And Plug, even though we've been around for 25 years, we're still very entrepreneurial. We're always trying to think of what's new and exciting and what people need, right? So to be able to see where a person went in this 3D tour, where they spent most of their time, did they click on all videos, or did they just click on a video focused on the production of a stack or an MEA panel? It really gives you an understanding of what people are interested in. That being said, it also shows you what countries people are watching from, or looking at different things, what they're interested in. In Europe, Green hydrogen is a huge conversation right now. So it's interesting to see somebody visited this tour from, anywhere really, and what they focused on, whether they went through all 7 stops or they wanted to really focus on one particular thing we were doing.
And either what did you find or what surprised you when you had access to the analytics that's provided by ZUANT3D of a Matterport space?
Again, it's the understanding what people are interested in. There's such an interest in electrolyzers, our PEM electrolyzers, and I think that says a lot about the hydrogen conversation. It has only become a big deal in the past few years where people have actually thought, wow, hydrogen really could be a thing, and now green hydrogen is a thing. And to see it through this Matterport ZUANT3D tour, to see that people really want to engage on how we're going to do that says a lot to us about, we're doing the right thing. It shows people that we're actively doing it. It's one thing to say something, but this is a transparency to show people that Plug is actually producing.
Tracy, were you surprised at how much time was spent within the Matterport tour? How much time was spent at the different stations?
I wouldn't say I was surprised. I was delighted because when we did it, I thought, oh, this is it. This is what people need to see. Because again, what I said about, it's one thing to talk about something, but the action needs to follow. I was so excited to see that people were viewing and seeing that we were actually doing something with hydrogen. And so surprised and excited, probably the same. And like I said before, there's no going back. I mean, there's no way you can't use this kind of software and this kind of production to get sort of this information across to the masses.
I would imagine that you could have used just Matterport and people could have viewed a Matterport tour, but you would not have had any of this analytics. How important was it that after you were surprised or maybe not surprised, but delighted about how much time how important was it to actually have that feedback that, oh, we had thousands of people tour this space and spent a lot of time at the different stations and watched all these videos of subject matter experts talking about how important was the analytics of being able to know time spent, where was it spent, where were people from?
It's key. It's everything. And what's funny is when I reached out to ZUANT and we started talking about the 3D tour, the initial demand was just to show people this tour, right? Well, we have people in person that we need that are going to see things. We need these people to see things too. And then the fact that those analytics are behind it was a pleasant surprise. So then it's something that Plug has never had. It's something that Plug has never had the opportunity to follow, right? And I know that the conversation isn't about the lead generation app that they have as well, but that too is what we're seeing is at trade shows, at corporate events, we're getting these analytics that we never had before. So now we have new people on our marketing team that are, solely focused on really understanding these analytics and working campaigns and things like that to make sure people get the information they're looking for. And the only reason we know what they're looking for is because of these analytics.
Let's talk about the lead generation. So this other category of when your guests virtually entered the Matterport space, did they need to register through a ZUANT provided registration screen?
They did. I was not I did not work on that piece, but they did, and it was in collaboration with whatever the hosting platform was for registering for the symposium as a whole.
Oh, okay.
So they worked together.
Yeah, Pete, was that the case? It was that the guests registered by filling out a ZUANT form in order to enter the Matterport space?
They could do it that way, but also working with the webinar platform, we can just pull the registrations through to save them the trouble of having to do that, so we know who they are when they go into the space.
So you could do it either way.
Sure,
Excuse me.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
of course, the people using the space now on a daily basis, that they register on the ZUANT form as they go.
They register. Okay. So in essence, there's two ways to enter a Matterport space of plug power. One is you already know who they are, so you've granted them access. And then second, for those that you may not have necessarily invited, but have the opportunity to view the tour, they can register to enter the front door, essentially, of plug power.
That's right.
At the high level, Tracy, can you talk a little bit about the lead generation as a result of this open house, this special invitation?
For the symposium, you mean?
For the symposium,
Yeah. So yeah, it's again, thousands of opportunities to see who visited. What you see on the back end from ZUANT is who the person was, all of their registered information. You can see what they looked at, how many times they looked at it, if they went back to something. So again, new people on our marketing team go through those analytics to understand what a person is doing when they visit it, and then continue to monitor sort of campaigns based on that.
Okay, so I'm somewhat naive. I don't fully understand all this. So how important is it to your sales team when following up with someone who has visited the symposium to know exactly what they looked at within the Matterport tour and how much time they spent and which videos they looked at?
Right.
How important was that?
So we're all consumers, right? So imagine you go into a store and somebody comes up and wants to sell you this piece of equipment over here, but you have zero interest in that. You came into the store to get a baseball bat, whatever the case is. It's the same thing with our sales teams, right? They can go to this person and they can not waste this person's time or their own time talking about a broad picture or a hypothetical or things like that. They can immediately dive into what they think this person wants. Nobody wants their time wasted. Nobody wants to be sold something that they don't need. So it really helps for a conversation to be streamlined, to simply say, we saw that you were here. We saw that you visited this spot several times. What else can I tell you about that? What kind of information would you like to hear? What kind of additional stuff can I send you?
As a global events manager, before today's conversation, before ZUANT, and you were doing events, were you essentially collecting the equivalent of a business card? And you had are we talking about the difference of night and day? We went from the information on a business card to actually how much time did they spend, where did they spend it, what did they look at, which videos did they look at? That person is interested in inside a factory and using a forklift and the conversion of a existing technology to a green hydrogen technology for warehouses. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think of the 250 people that were there on site, we don't have these analytics for them. We know that they went on this tour. We know that they stopped at all 7 spots. We don't know if it interested them or not, unless you had the feedback from them. So without question, the analytics here are invaluable. It's something we would never get from an in-person only event.
So when you interact with perhaps sales and marketing, you are the global events manager, and in a company of 3,000 employees, I would imagine there's a lot of people that have a focus on sales, a focus on marketing. When you came back to them and said, here's the data analytics and the lead generation that we have and the information behind the leads, what kind of reactions did you get from your team?
They love it. It's just an added tool for them. It's a more efficient way for them to work. And just as in we get valuable leads, you're also able to see what's not valuable necessarily, right? It's always great to have people visit. It's always great to know that people are interested. There's no question that there's competitors that are looking. There's no question that there's college age kids, in university looking, which is wonderful, but certainly not somebody our sales team is going to reach out to. So in those instances, it streamlines for the sales team who the focus is, who the mature conversations are, who you sent us to sourcing, right? A lot of the time suppliers will, trying to sell us something, will log in, and that's wonderful. And we know to put them over on the sourcing side of things as opposed to sales.
Did it also help the sales team prioritize? I imagine there's never enough salespeople to call the number of leads all on day one, or all on week one, or all in month one. So did the ZUANT data analytics, lead generation, was that instrumental in helping the sales team prioritize?
Absolutely. We have, every business unit that we have has a sales coordinator, and part of their many jobs is to gather leads from an event, or this 3D tour, and sort of plan out who in their business unit gets the lead and who has to follow up and things like that. So it does help. And though we're not currently using it, ZUANT does enable you to integrate directly into Salesforce. So the reason we're currently not using it is because we integrate first into a program called Pardot, which is a marketing tool. And then ultimately, you look like you know that, Dan. But
the founder is in my office, in my co-working space. So
well, there you go. They're a lovely group.
Yeah.
And yes, so we go through Pardot first, and then give it to our sales coordinators to sort of divide and conquer amongst the sales team. But any of that integration is helpful, whether it's integrating to Pardot or Salesforce is helpful, because it's less manual work that we have to do. And again, back to the efficiency of it all.
Yeah. Pete, before I ask you to kind of give us a deep dive demo of the Plug Power plus Matterport plus ZUANT3D, at a top level, are there follow-up questions that you feel like you want to ask Tracy?
Well, Tracy, no, we're delighted to I mean, you two are doing the job for me at this stage, but I mean, you've had a taster of this at short notice, and it's delivered quite a lot more than I think any of us expected at the time. We just didn't know. You have to fly a kite sometimes and see what happens. Sure. So with that taste, where do you see this headed for the future? Do you see similar applications for other plants, or
Absolutely.
You were talking earlier about your hydrogen highway, are there other applications for digital twins that you can see in the future?
Absolutely. There's no question we will use it again. We are building green hydrogen production plants across the US, and we fully intend on doing at least one, if not multiple, tours of those facilities. We have some of our products, like our electrolyzer, PEM electrolyzer product, our stationary power units. These are very large 40-foot plus products that we absolutely are considering doing some sort of digital twin with, because those are things that you can't bring to somebody to show them, right? I mean, you can bring a person there, but we much more prefer to be able to bring a visual to people of what these very large scale products look like.
Very cool. So do you ever see a time at a trade show where you would just, instead of building a booth, you would build a theater and have a 3D tour, so that you could hop from plant to plant? Any thoughts like that yet?
I think that could be integrated for sure. I think in the trade show world, there certainly needs to be an element of real product. That's what people are looking for. But there absolutely is a world of combining it similarly to what we did for Symposium. You have things happening in person as they should, but certainly an ability to bring other people, broadcast to other people, or broadcast into that shell from a plant, like you said.
I found it fascinating that you had 200 plus people come on site, yet the thousands of people who participated virtually, you know way more about what's of interest to them versus having collected their business card as they walked in the door, or their check them off that they had registered to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think it's
fascinating.
an element that people in live events don't really, hadn't really considered until recently.
Yeah.
You invite people, the people you're inviting, it's a bit of a sort of a select group, but you still don't know.
So how important was it that you had thousands more participate than the 200 that could participate in person?
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, you can never go back. I think we'll always have to have hybrid events because it started from the year before when it was the end of COVID and we were still being cautious. And so we had a virtual event for the whole symposium. And then we did the hybrid. And it's one of those things where you can't go back. We have valued customers and partners in Europe and Asia, all around the world. And why not include them in what we're doing and make it easier for them?
Since you were offering a virtual experience, did you have any concern that that might reduce the in-person attendance?
Well, that was asked of us, but we were never really concerned because the Gigafactory is a tremendous, large-scale place, right? And so we did know that it was something special for people to come see. We were pleasantly surprised that, we're happy that people did show up. Rochester, New York in October is always questionable simply by weather standards. So, but we did have a really great group in person. And we were confident because of what we were showing them, but absolutely pleased to show globally as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Pete, how about giving us a deep dive demo specifically of Plug Power plus Matterport plus ZUANT3D, specifically related to the symposium. And then Tracy, if you want to comment at any point while Pete's going through his show and tell, please feel free to jump in.
Sure.
Good. So, I mean, this is the stream once you've logged in. And interestingly, this was the first time we used the Matterport Pro 3 camera, which was a really good test to show the quality of 3D photography outdoors as well as indoors.
So Pete, I'm looking at a still picture. So okay? So this is a Matterport tour, and you're right outside the.
We're right outside. This was taken, I think, on a Friday evening before the event the following week, and I guess that's the sun going down, and there's a guy walking over to a truck there. So that gave a very nice quality introductory.
And for clarification, help us understand the frame that this Matterport tour is living in.
So this is the ZUANT3D frame, and this allows us to obviously provide some additional branding. But the key thing here is to provide navigation. So particularly in this case, we didn't want people just wandering around and getting lost or going into confidential areas. So we were able to create a really nice flow along the tour. And Tracy, I imagine this was very similar to the sequence for the 200 odd people that were there in person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then using the Matter tags to be able to
So Daniel O'Connell is the CEO of Plug Power. So he's doing the welcome greeting.
Well, he's actually the general manager of this facility, of this Gigafactory. Andy Marsh is Plug CEO.
Thank you.
So,
and so there is sound, but you've turned it down for the purpose of
yes,
our walkthrough.
Indeed. So most of the visitors would have gone through here and listened to the introduction.
Facility, home of the world's first and largest 10-stack and electrolyzer gigafactory. This facility has a capacity of over 2.5 gigawatts of electrical output.
Okay, so that's awesome. We get it.
So that's easy.
Okay. And I
And then-
see on the right side, it says next is plate stamping, though I'm looking down a hallway. So I imagine what's going to happen is when you hit plate stamping, you're going to skip spaces that Plug Power didn't necessarily want to show people.
Yep, indeed. So here we are at plate sealing, and if you're into plate sealing, you want to watch the next video. So Dennis Sharp was the guy in charge of this particular area, and so we got a video for him to introduce this stage.
And are we able to look as a 360 in terms of being in the plate sealing space?
Indeed, so you can see various aspects here. A few more videos. So not too much to browse around.
But I think this is probably important because that's been blurred. So
Yeah.
I imagine that Tracy, you or your team specified that we can't show whatever is on those flat plates.
Exactly.
Kids.
Yep.
So that's plate sealing.
And again, for clarification, is the one in the green, is that Matterport? Is that ZUANT?
This is a classic Matterport video as a matter tag inserted, but of course we're tracking how long people look at a video, and so this becomes part of the dwell time on the sales leads that are captured.
Okay.
So that's classic Matterport. If a sales guy was using this one-to-one with a visitor, they may not want to go through the tour, so you can hop to different sections. So if you had a customer interested in stack assembly, he or she would jump straight to that. But interestingly, for the symposium, people seem to religiously walk through the whole tour, and it's amazing how engaged they got. They're into their subjects here.
Well, unless there was something else on the front end, maybe you could take us into the back end, which is really the magic, the secret sauce for ZUANT3D.
Okay, absolutely. So
Was there anything else on the front end that you wanted to show us, Pete?
not particularly, no. There's various steps all the way through the tour. So if you're into hydrogen plants, this is your thing. And Tracy, I don't know if there are any other points that you had feedback on that people found interesting here.
No, I mean, I think the idea of being able to see inside of a working gigafactory is in itself an opportunity. I know not everybody's into that kind of thing, but if you are, this is an exceptional opportunity to see how these things are set up and how they work.
Fit together. Good. So for Tracy and her team, she has the power to go into the back end of the system. So in the future, we hope to line up these additional place cards, if you like, to describe each of the factories.
Okay, so we're in the content management system, the CMS for
Yes.
ZUANT3D, and we're now looking at a demo account of the Plug Power Symposium 2022.
Yes, well, this is the real account.
Okay.
So this is like the content hub where you'd add additional Matterport scans or different tours, or maybe Tracy, the future you want a Chinese or a Japanese version, so you could have different tours in different languages using exactly the same scan, but pre-packaged.
So let me stop you here, Pete, because I don't want to have you end up showing something we don't have permission for. So should we come off the tour and then talk about the different activities and lead and radar and what all that means?
Sure. So in activity, this is what Tracy, you were talking about. So you've both got an activity grid, so you can see.
Okay. So we have some data that's just you, Pete, that we can look at and not look at some other data. Okay, great.
Yes, indeed. And this then gets packaged up. So once someone's left a space or there's been no activity for 5 minutes, we've set that time, and it then creates a sales lead.
Before we go there, so let's go slowly over this page, because there's a lot that probably really matters, and maybe you could help us explain what those different categories are and why that's golden.
Sure. So as Tracy was explaining, to cut to the chase for a sales guy, he or she would want to know what the priority interest was for an individual in the space. So what did they dwell on the most? And what did they skip through? So the sales lead, once it's condensed, after someone's left the tour, you'd be able to see those activities and summarized, so that you've got the person's contact details plus what their main interests were. So
in this
gives a really good
particular case,
indication.
in this particular case, which is your email address is showing up, and there's a date stamp, and which experience that you're in is the symposium. We can see that how much time you spent in the plate sealing, the plate stamping zones, and within those zones, which points you were looking at and spending time.
Indeed.
On this page, which kind of gives you the number of interactions per se that let's say you had looking at the tour, is there a scoring system, or is that something that's coming to help aid the salespeople so that you turn this raw data into
Yes. So the start of this is radar. So that's the next thing. So you can see all of the people that have been in the space through the course of today, where they left the space, and the higher the score at this stage. So these are actual views of other visitors who have been in the Plug Power digital twin today. The higher the score, the more time and the more activities someone has taken in that space.
Okay. Is there anything else to show us on the back end?
Yes, there is. So radar is the precursor to a soon to be launched feature, which is chat and video. So you can connect this to your inside sales team, your contact center agents, so that they can be monitoring this and then diving in, maybe as a receptionist in Plug Power uniform, to say, well, I see you've been in the space and you're spending a lot of time looking at plate sealing, for instance. Can I help you? So I think that's the final step in making a digital twin something that's almost better than a real life.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. I promised to ask you about that. I want to really stay in the case study of what actually happened. So, during the symposium, was it possible for Plug Power to see in real time what was happening?
Yes, indeed. So if we go to the dates of the symposium itself, which was in October. Let's go back to say the 14th, the Friday was probably the shoot, and then run that to the end of the month. So it's now generating the stats on the dashboard to show exactly what happened. And the numbers are terrific. So in that period of time, you can see this symposium activity peaked at 65,000 activities. So that's wonderful engagement, compared to tracking the few seconds that someone goes onto your website and looks at 1 or 2 pages and disappears off again. these guys had an average of 65 activities within that space. So that's really good engagement, and over 2,000 unique visitors were in there. And you know, if that number of people suddenly turned up at your exhibition booth or wanted to attend in person to this event, you'd be swamped and you couldn't engage with them all. So it allows the servers to cope with that traffic, and then gives Tracy a view of where people spent the most time. And, you know, obviously the welcome page and the lobby is the first one. But over time, you'll start to see which areas were the most interesting. And the fact that it's such a flat line here from station to station actually shows engagement, doesn't it? Because they stayed in and wanted to do the whole tour. So that was, you know, extremely good job. Well done.
Tracy, looking at this page, do you have any comments?
Just kind of reiterating the things that Pete said, you know, again, we would never have reached this number of people if we didn't have such a platform. And again, going back to that, I was going to say the same thing that Pete said. When you see that linear, steady graph there of engagement in the different tour stops, it does prove the point that everybody stuck it out. And, you know, it dropped off a little bit towards the end, but not by much. So they really were engaged in the process of making these things.
And had this only been a Matterport tour, I'm going to call it a vanilla Matterport tour, you wouldn't know any of this.
No, again, that would have helped visually. That would have helped give people some insight into our gigafactory, but we would not have known what they were interested in.
So you really got to see that you had 2,000 unique visitors come to the symposium and in a delightful way experience everything that they could see with nearly equal amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's surprisingly consistent. It shows tremendous engagement, really, much to our surprise, I think.
And I think there's more on this dashboard that you wanted to show, Pete.
We can change and adjust this dashboard. You know, this is our suggested dashboard for clients to use.
Okay.
But basically, if we've got the data, we can present anything anyone wants. So, you know, we've added things like most frequent departure points. Well, here you are. I think the hydrogen fueling system was probably the last step in the tour. So it meant that they stayed right to the end, things like that.
Okay, so is there anything else on the back end to show us?
I guess the leads themselves then is the combination here. So
okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll come off that screen, and I think the key thing here was I saw a button that said export. So tell us about that export and what is it that that Plug Power received?
Well, as a standard, you can download a spreadsheet of your leads with all of that information. But ideally, we'd have this plugged into what we call our railway station or the ZUANT cloud, which is used for receiving leads, whether they're from badge scans or from Matterport 3D experiences. And then you can do all sorts of things with those leads.
Okay.
So send a thank you for going for the tour, supply some content, connect to the HubSpot system. And so, you know, that's where all the traffic, the magic happens with processing and streamlining that lead data.
Okay, great. Tracy, back to you. When you began this conversation, the challenge you were originally going after was related to your lead management, and it sounded like it was a little bit, every trade show had a different system. And can you, while we're on this topic, what is it that you found, that what challenge was ZUANT able to help you with, just in general, with your physical events and your lead generation?
Sure. So exactly what you said, when you go to a trade show, generally the organizer has a system that you can rent, and you scan a badge and you get whatever information that person registered with is what you get. You can sometimes add qualifying questions, and then you get a simple sort of spreadsheet, fed back to you after the event. What I was finding in 12 to 20 global events in a year, it was all inconsistent. The qualifying questions were inconsistent. The contact or data that they offered at registration wasn't always the same, especially Europe versus US. And so in addition to that, some of them you had a handheld something, a tangible thing that you had to scan, and other shows you would have your phone and an app on it. And it became very confusing, very convoluted, and hard to sort of get all of my sales teams on the same page about too. So this has tremendously streamlined. We use the ZUANT app for every trade show. We've had 8 trade shows this year so far globally. We also have the opportunity for our people to have this on our CEO, Andy, for instance, can have the app on his phone. And if he's sitting on a train going somewhere and he interacts with somebody and he wants to take their information and send them some stuff, he can scan their business card and it will load in. He has specific qualifying questions, and then he can send it to somebody on his team to follow up with. So it's that having it at the tip of your fingers, as it were, where either it's at a trade show or it's on a train, it doesn't matter. It all goes into the same system in the same way consistently. And then we upload them after each event and send them to our sales coordinators who know what they're getting. You know what I mean? They don't have to sift through things. And a piece with the ZUANT app that's great for us is they have a notes section where you can dictate information. So our teams have been bombarded at trade shows. It's a great problem to have. They've been so busy that sometimes all they can do is scan a badge or a business card and then dictate notes in the notes section. And that's okay, because on the back end, we are able to go through and look at that and organize it for them and know exactly what they were thinking. So it just really works. There's been very few downsides, and largely it's because it's user error. Somebody is not great at technology, and so they have trouble working it. But ZUANT is great at training. They've sat in and done trainings with our sales teams before shows, so they know what they're working with. And it's all uphill at this point in terms of what the opportunities are and how streamlined it is.
So if I hear correctly, all these crazy different devices and technologies, poof, they've all gone away. You've standardized on the ZUANT classic app for lead generation collection, and I believe then ZUANT helped you with the export routine to Pardot. Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah, they're working with the people on our marketing team that do the integration. They're working to integrate it so it goes directly into Pardot.
And Pete, I presume just in general, whatever content management system a client is using, that you build out the integration to that for those enterprise size clients.
Yes, for sure. And so it could be a connection to your content, collateral, videos, so that they're all on the app going in, and on the exit end, the leads flowing through into the CRM or marketing automation platform. So that just saves so much time. And also, most companies take a long time to follow up on their leads after a show. And, if you're spending hundreds of thousands, some companies millions on a trade show, it's madness not to get an instant thank you email out and have the sales guys following them up. Getting ahead of the competition is the game these days.
Awesome. I want to just switch gears a little bit. Pete, you started to talk about something new that's coming with ZUANT3D, live guided chat. Can you talk just a little bit about that topic what is ZUANT3D live guided chat?
So it's both chat and video, and that can be initiated by a visitor into a 3D space. So a really good example, you know, you're looking to buy a new car, you go into a Matterport scanned digital twin.
Let's stay on
showroom.
plug power for a moment and say
Okay.
how that might work for plug power.
Okay, so
And let's talk about the Symposium. How this is a new feature. It wasn't out at the
Yep.
time, but if plug power knew about this feature, how might that have worked with the Symposium?
So with the Symposium, we could have had a team of agents there available to talk to people going through the tour, the Matterport tour, and they could have just pressed a button to talk to someone or to have a chat if they had individual questions as they went through. And I think almost more importantly, after the Symposium, when we've had these other people visiting each day, then just to be able to greet them, you know, as I said, in a plug power uniform, as a receptionist would be sitting on a reception desk. How can I help you? Why are you here today? Can I get someone from inside sales to give you a tour? So to give you that really good personal service that you sometimes struggle to get at a live show.
Oh, I think I heard three things. So had those virtual visitors stood in front of that piece of equipment, there might have been a live greeter to be able to interact with those that were visiting virtually.
Correct.
And that would actually be a one-on-one greeting as opposed to a one-to-many. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely individual.
So literally, if plug power had enough staff to go around, could have had a one-on-one with anyone that was, and that could have taken place at each station with a subject matter expert regarding that.
Indeed, absolutely.
And that video chat might have been initiated either by the visitor or by plug power, recognizing that somebody is spending a lot of time standing in that one spot, looking, turning, and say, hey, I'm Dan, just want to check in, see if you had a question.
Indeed.
And then presumably either could accept that video chat or not. So as a visitor, I wouldn't be forced to accept that video chat. I would get a little window. Would you like to talk to a person right
Correct.
now? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And both screens could be controlled by either side.
Either side. And then I think the second thing I heard is that could have been a text chat as well. So,
Yes.
So that I'm virtually standing in front of that station. I could be typing a note asking, you know, does that come in blue?
Indeed. Simple as that.
Okay. Well,
and actually, that's something that the in-person people had that the virtual didn't, and it would have been helpful too, is we did have subject matter experts at each stop. So those real-time questions that the in-person person got answers to, that would be a perfect use case for that application.
Okay. And Pete, how might that work? Let's just say it was at a plug power trade show that was happening virtually. Is it in a similar fashion? I walk into the plug power trade show booth. Is there a video greeter for everyone, or is it like, would you like to chat with someone virtually to help walk you through the experience?
Yes, or particularly for a trade show, you know, there'll be some people that really do want to see some new products being launched at a show. But, you know, they're on the other side of the world. They don't have time to fly to the show and the costs and the hotels and so on. So they would actually pre-book an appointment with someone in the booth who would be able to show them around using the digital twin, sitting in a meeting room, actually at the show. So you tend to have your subject matter experts for new products at a show. So that's the best time. So book a face-to-face live meeting or a virtual meeting if you can't travel to the show. So it's a way of getting a much better return on investment for your exhibiting by
great.
seeing more people and extending the life of the show, maybe for weeks or months afterwards.
So for our viewers, if they're interested in learning more about ZUANT or ZUANT3D or ZUANT Classic app or ZUANT3D live guided chat, they can go to ZUANT3D.com, ZUANT3D.com, and fill out a contact page, or go to sales@ZUANT.com, or in fact, call the company 866-616-4958. And for those that are in the We Get Around Network forum, Pete is at Peter Gillette. And for those that are interested in more about Plug Power, the website is plugpower.com. Before we all say bye, I just want to give each of you an opportunity to ask each other a question or comment, if that's the case. Tracy, is there something you wanted to ask Pete, or just the final thought?
Oh, the final thought is I'm so happy that Plug and ZUANT are working together. I've had the opportunity to work with several people within ZUANT between the symposium and the crazy last minute work and the consistent work we do with the trade show application. It's just, I'm the type of person that likes to find an A team and stick with it. And ZUANT is absolutely part of my A team. And I look forward to more 3D tours. I look forward to continued work with lead generation at trade shows and anything else we can think of.
Good. And I think just to add to that, I think you were fairly brave just to dive in with this new technology, a new camera, just did it. So appreciate your confidence, and we're delighted that it's paid off in these early days. Wonderful.
Tracy, thanks for being on the show today.
Dan, thank you so much. And thank you, Peter.
Pete, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks both.
We've been visiting with Plug Power Global Events Manager Tracy Oakland and ZUANT Chief Executive Officer Peter Gillette. I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum, and you've been watching WGAN-TV.